Troublemaker.
Okay,
Okay,
you guys already know this is
Well-
meant to be an overview.
I have to call the meeting to order.
Okay, sorry.
It's okay. 5:47 PM. Today is May 20th. 2025. I'm going to call this special city council meeting to order. Please mute your cell phones unless you're emergency personnel. Notice of compliance. Apologize, I don't know it by heart, one moment.
74-204.
74-204. Finding that the agenda is in compliance.
I will move that the notice for this meeting was posted in accordance with Idaho Code 74-204.
A second, so come on the table.
Sean, second.
Oh, hello, yes.
Can I get a second first?
Second.
Okay, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, Shelley, if you'd like to get us started with our budget workshop.
Okay, this is meant to be just an overview of kind of what's coming for our budgeting sessions. So very briefly, okay, why is this not working now? Oh my gosh, it was working a second ago.
Yeah.
There we go.
Just use your buttons.
Yeah. Did you do it? No, okay. So we're gonna talk about general counsel responsibilities very briefly, fund accounting principles that we follow for the city. Our schedule, which you already have, but I have put it in your book, kind of the life cycle of a budget. Your council role in the budgeting process. And then city services, because that's a big part of your role. General fund revenues, capital funding, general fund expenses. And then our enterprise funds, water and wastewater, which are totally separate than general funds for the city. So in general, the council has specific roles. But your general, oh great, that covers it up. Right there. Provide leadership to the community, adopt local laws, regulations, plans and ordinances. Approve payables, budgets and tax levies. Adopt policies guiding the city's internal operations by resolution, including records retention, personnel, purchasing, investments, etc. Confirm appointment and removal of city appointed officers and confirm appointment and removal of city boards, commissions and committees. And then with financials, your duty is to ask questions, understand the reports given by me, the treasurer. And to be able to answer constituents' questions and make informed decisions on future projects and policies. Okay, so let's talk city finances a little bit in general. Fund accounting principles, and this is the stuff the auditor rattles at you every fall or winter. We follow GAAP, GASP, and AIC guidance standards. So GASB is the Government Accounting Standards Board that provides specific guidance on reporting standards, changes, and all this. The accountants that do our audit check this stuff. And GAAP is generally accepted accounting principles used to provide direction to us. They check all of that. That for me, in this whole budget process, the AIC, Association of Idaho Cities, is the most helpful organization of all. They're the ones that help with estimating revenues and a lot of stuff. And they just put out their budget manual this last week. So any questions on the accounting principles? Okay, our schedule, which you guys all have, and we will do future calendar invites for the next one, but our next one would be next Tuesday. It's supposed to be our official work session number 1 for water and wastewater budgets. Okay. The budget life cycle. Your involvement here is just in the next few months, the creation, April through August. You evaluate the big picture of where we are, you suggest possible projects or cuts. By July 28th, that's the date that the council will adopt the preliminary budget. But then I have to publish, and on August 28th, we have to have a public hearing. So that's when it will be official that you adopt the annual appropriations ordinance for the coming year. So the rest of that whole cycle, I live it year round. Yeah, and department heads live it all year round too, but your involvement is just, the big part is just during this creation of it. So the end result of all of this effort, and this is a brief picture of kind of what it looks like in the end, all broken down by revenue, personnel, operations, capital, total expenses, kind of the differences between the last years, and I have to publish in certain forms. But this is generally very similar to what it will look like when I publish it. So what does the big picture look like? What is your role in the whole process of this budgeting? So first off, it's to set city utility rates and other fees. And I know staff is working on this right now. We're hoping to be able to go through and perhaps establish some new fees and rates so that we can properly budget over the next year and hopefully get a little more revenue from that. We'll talk about how much revenue we get. What levels of service should the city provide? Are there new services that we're not doing that we should? And how would we fund those? This is kind of the big questions to ask. And with that, is additional staffing needed to provide those services? And how do we find new staff? How do we keep new staff? How are they funded? That's a really big issue because payroll is a big part of our entire budget. You gotta have people to run it. How can the budget support the city's future growth and development? I've got a few slides in here where we're gonna talk about that briefly. How can we develop a capital budget to invest in our infrastructure that we need? You know, and how do we fund it then? That's the big question. How do we fund it? And what policy priorities should be fulfilled in this budget process? Is there anything we need to change about the way we are functioning as a city? Okay. And lastly, deciding if cost of living or inflationary pay increases will be granted. Those are the kind of the big picture, what the council's role is in the budgeting process. Any questions about that? Okay, so, yeah, is that one of them?
Tammy is on her way down, so just let me know that she's gonna take a call from our lawyer really quick.
You want me to pause?
Yeah, if you don't mind pausing.
We can pause.
It sounds like you're on your way down here.
Done a lot of work on this. Good job.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, this is we've never seen this before.
Yay, this is
Great.
great. I've never seen it before either.
This would have made my job a lot easier coming in as a new person.
Huh.
Yeah, and understanding like the budget instead of just being, here you go.
Well, that's good to know. And you got a simple one.
I know, mine's simple. So, but yeah.
It's been 16 years I've been doing this, and this is the best ever.
Yeah.
Yeah. You always get my heart, Sean. You're such a supporter.
Yeah, this is really, I mean, just thank you for putting this much work into this.
You're welcome.
Yeah. And it's so easy to read. Do we get to keep
The colors,
these?
you can keep that.
Yes, definitely.
And tomorrow, Amy and I will get this loaded on the website.
Yeah.
We still
Oh,
need her assistance. Yeah.
wow, okay, fine. It's great for the, and yeah, I didn't know if like this was gonna be common knowledge, it's just, that's great.
Everything,
That's great
everything is.
transparency,
Yeah.
yeah. So,
We can put that in, we can talk about where it goes.
yeah, it can be like, how do you figure out your budget? Yeah, it can be like, oh, well, we have a presentation on it. Mhm.
All right, Shelley, thank you for pausing. Darling, good?
Yeah, I think we can keep going. Tam's on her way, right?
Yes, that's what she said.
So in the process of evaluating priorities, what we're doing and everything, there's gonna be competing requests. How are we gonna afford this over this? Is it, so here's some questions to ask when we get to those points of saying, is it this or this? Is it mandated? Will productivity increase? How does it affect our staffing? Will it reduce liability exposure? And what are the priorities of you as elected officials? And can a program actually offset its costs? So those may help when we get into the, you know, if we're talking about any new service or how we expand a service or what. And I will keep this available if we need to refer back when we're doing budget stuff. So city services, let's talk about those for a second. You know, what city services should we provide? Are there new ones that we need to be, and how will they be funded? I've already said this, and is there staffing needed? So right now we have law enforcement, we have fire and emergency services, we have streets, we have misdemeanor prosecution. We have solid waste, kind of working on recycling with potential franchise there, drinking water, wastewater. And I'm not sure how much of a stormwater management we have, but think about if there's something that we're missing in the whole picture of what we need to be providing to our citizens.
Where has this list come from?
I probably stole that from AIC.
Okay.
Yeah, and I mean, it coincides with what we have.
Well, no, I
Yeah.
was just curious if,
Yeah. Some of this material came from AIC's materials. Okay, so we're talking general fund now, city revenue. Where does our money come from? Okay, this is the hardest part of my job right here, revenue forecasting. It is very difficult because if you look back at budgets over the years, things change dramatically. They change. So projecting income is very difficult. So, and that's what I will be tackling here in the next couple of weeks. Very, very hard. So where does it come from? Government resources are 61% of our revenue for our general fund. City property tax, and this is all based on what's budgeted this last year. It's all based on 25 and 24 kind of, it all coincides. 35% comes from our city property tax. Sales tax is 12%, state highway revenue is 12%, and state liquor sharing is 3%. Okay, so that makes up the 61%. Where does the rest come from? Well, that's the next slide, but we'll talk about property tax here. So we are limited on how much we can increase our property tax budget, 3%. The maximum increase, including new construction and annexation levies, cannot exceed 8% in total. So there is a very complicated sheet that the county puts out that I have to fill out that that gives us basically the computations of our city property tax for the year. So it's that's the most difficult part of it right there. The sales tax revenue, the state allocates 11.5% of sales tax to counties, cities, and non-school special districts. So for fiscal year ending September 30th, 2024, sales tax revenue decreased for the second year in a row. Estimates for this fiscal year 25 were for a 4.1% decrease in our revenue sharing. So that's not good when we're getting less money as costs of everything are going up. So it doesn't help us in the big picture of things. I left that so you could refer to the 61%, but state shared highway revenue. They allocate over 250 million to local highway jurisdictions, but it's based on population. So we received 278,000 in fiscal year 24, But this year, we're only gonna get less than 200,000 of highway revenue. So that's going down too. So it's,
Why is it down?
I can't explain it other than,
It's not based on anything in particular, our population didn't change, I guess, is what I
I
meant.
think maybe other populations did change, like other areas increased their population and our population didn't increase. So more of the pie.
Goes elsewhere.
Went to larger population areas.
that would make sense, yeah. So state liquor sharing is about 3% of our income. We should get about 260,000 for fiscal year 25, which is more than highway funds for liquor. Yeah, and it would be more if we had a liquor store and stuff like that, we would get more. There is more to be had there.
We have, well, like,
Godly's, yeah,
but we do have what's considered our liquor store.
yeah.
At least, yeah.
Yeah. So the rest of the funds, 39% is city lot tax, franchises, the charges for our services, licenses, permits, fees, grants, administrative fees, and other. The whole pot is everything else, okay? Lot tax. We adopted lot tax in June of 2022. Okay, we've been getting 3% on hotel, motel lodging, short-term lodging. Those funds for our city are dedicated to streets. They have to go to street, it can go to snow removal, it can go to equipment, but it has to go to streets, that is in our ordinance. So about 3% of our revenue, and this is because we are a resort city. I will tell you right now that there are discussions because counties and cities who are not resort cities want to be able to implement lot taxes. Yes, did you have a question? Yes.
As far as short-term rentals, that changed this year in legislation where other cities can do that. You don't have to be a resort.
Well, they're working on more stuff now. I'm not sure, Brian knows a little more about it than I do. I just started joining meetings.
There was a generalized local option tax bill presented in the last legislative session. That put a pretty substantial limit on our current resort cities local option taxing authority. Is fairly broad as long as we can get the 60% voter approval to adopt it. The new bill is much more restrictive and limited to 2% and half of it goes to property tax relief and so our revenue would go substantially down.
There's a lot going on with lot right now. Pun not intended. Okay, so here's, for those of you who are visual and like the graphics, here's how it graphs out. City property tax, there's 35%. So there's lots of pieces that make up the revenues. There's only very few of those we can actually control. And we're gonna talk about those here for a second. Any questions on revenue so far?
I know you probably went over this, but these are just general fund revenues, this is not,
Correct.
yes, I just wanna make
This
sure.
is just general.
Yeah, no
And-
proprietary funds, no water and sewer funds,
No.
cause those are specific to the
Correct.
operation, okay.
Question about revenue, state liquor sharing. Is our percentage based on purchases made from our liquor store?
It does affect it.
Okay, so if, say, one of our bars is purchasing their liquor from Haley or the Ketchum liquor store, they're making that.
Yeah,
Yeah. Has there been education done with our liquor license holders that
we're gonna do some.
affects our state liquor sharing, or is that something we could communicate to our license holders to say, hey, if you buy in Bellevue, that benefits us, especially with, having the resort licenses and all that, is there information is that okay to put that out?
I would have to do a little research and find what it is and.
I don't see why that hurt to say, hey, if you buy from Bellevue, it benefits Bellevue.
No, I would agree,
Yeah.
but I think you also wanna know what the numbers would be if it's, but I agree, but I think be curious what what you think the numbers could be.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, I can look into
Sean
that.
has his hand up.
Sean, any insight?
What's that?
Any insight on,
Yeah, you know, I buy
buying
all,
from Guffey's?
I buy all my liquor from Guffey's. And have been fun for 18 years.
Okay,
Heard rumors that other places do not buy liquor from Bellevue. And, they have resort licenses. So I want to persuade them to do it because it helps us in the long run. But I know, sure, it's if it is legal to do so.
that's something to
We'll
just
look
think
into
about.
it.
Yeah,
Okay,
thank you.
so other on here, the 9% includes our licenses, permits, non-building fees. Okay, the charges for services, that 6% is our building fees. Fines, park fees, sign permits, and miscellaneous, that's what's in your other, and I have that printed in there for you. This isn't meant for you to be able to read, but this is our fee schedule, which you will be reviewing very soon, I believe. But these are the items that we, as a city, have control over. But they still have to be reasonable, we can't just outrageously charge whatever we want. So you will be reviewing fees in conjunction with this whole budget process.
And how will we review those? Will there
They'll
be
be coming to
supporting,
council,
with
yes.
supporting documentation?
yes.
It'll be a separate agenda item,
Mhm.
and each department is contributing supporting information as to why the increases will be, it'll be an overall document. And the goal is to do a sweeping approval, so that we're not doing each fee individually.
So the departments are gonna come in and adjust all of these?
There's likely a spreadsheet that's going to have current fees, the changes, the recommended change to the fee and the why. And we'll review that as its own agenda item.
But they're kind of all broken up, let's say there's 40 up there.
Yeah.
There could be 8 in one department, 3 in one,
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it'll be a collective thing that the departments are all putting together as one thing, but each department will have gone through their respective fees.
Great, thank you.
Yes.
Citywide, we're doing it citywide.
Yes, because it hasn't been, Suzanne, hasn't been done in quite some time.
Yeah.
Guessing that's the 22 part.
And even before that, so, yeah.
Okay, so another revenue for us is franchise revenue. It's about 4% of our income. In fiscal year 24, we got 9,000 from Cox, almost 61,000 from Idaho Power, and almost 22 from Intermountain Gas, for a total of just under 100,000, 92. What's interesting is I look back at fiscal year 23 and it was a good $5,000 higher. And fiscal year 22 was kind of in line with fiscal year 22. So we've gone down a little bit, although the good news is hopefully we are going to see if a fourth franchise with Clear Creek Disposal will be one of those services that is beneficial to our citizens. And if it is, that will be coming to you for approval, hopefully soon. I know Jessica's been working on that. I don't know what the status is.
We're waiting on information back from Clear Creek.
Okay,
Is there anything, and I've lost track of this a little bit, but the big power, putting all the power underground, that was supposedly additional fees on, and even though it's only Haley North, so it's really got nothing to do with Bellevue. But we're all, as part of Blaine County, paying an additional fee. It's like been built into one of the fees that's on our power. Does that new project and the increase of those fees that are being collected in any way manifest in that franchise fee, since we're helping pay for things we're not getting? I was just curious if anyone knew.
most of these agreements, for example, the Intermountain Gas we're renewing right now, 30 years. Idaho Power haven't looked at it, it's probably at least 20 years old. To know what exactly their fee is based on.
Yeah,
That's a
just
good
bring it up
question, though.
because we're like getting
Yeah.
sucked into paying for everything going
Yeah.
on and making things look good up there. Maybe we
Worth a
can like be
question.
like, hey,
I can see if I can shed any light on that from what our agreement says.
And also, just since you're engaged in that, it's just something that may or may not factor into
Yeah.
what you notice, you know, when you're.
Yeah. Okay. Capital funding, planning for future infrastructure. This is where it gets a little different. Okay, so we contracted, the city did, with Richard Kaplan and Associates to prepare an impact fee study. This was completed in November of 2022. Our current impact fees are based on this study, and they're designed to help fund capital improvements that are part of the comprehensive plan. And as we know, Brian is working on comprehensive plan updates. So let's talk a little bit more here. So pursuant to our city code, we cannot hold those fees longer than 8 years unless we identify in writing a reasonable cause why the fees should be held longer than 8 years. And B, an anticipated date by which the fees will be expended, but in no event greater than 11 years from the date they were collected. So we have a ticking time clock here on fees. The issue is really, and we'll talk about that here in a second, is how much we have to spend. So, also according to our code, we are to update this capital improvements plan every 5 years. So that would be 2027, we are due to do it. Although I'm gonna show you something that motivates me to say we need to do it sooner. Okay. So development impact fees. This fiscal year, and this number is a lot higher because I only went through March 31st. I can tell you it's over 30,000 now. So it's changed a lot in the last month. But the second quarter of the year, we had only brought in $18,575 worth of development impact fees. You can see the breakdown on how they break down. We budgeted this fiscal year to raise $69,993. I'm pretty sure we will surpass that with Brian at our helm here. We're gonna do better than that, I hope. So total collected, since we started collecting, administration has roughly 15,000, buildings and grounds, 32,000, community development, 37,000 almost, fire, 55. We only have a couple $100,000 total. It's not a lot of money when it comes to capital projects. Okay, so the code basically says, and you'll see in here, money's collected from the department name, so insert admin, development impact fees shall be used only to plan for and acquire and construct admin capital facilities or to pay debt service on any portion of any future general obligation or revenue bond or similar instrument used to finance acquisition or construction of admin capital facilities within the city. It's the same language for every department. So fire has to go for fire capital facilities. Admin would be city hall. Streets would be streets facilities. So that same language is for every department within the city. So what is public facilities? The Idaho code says, well, it's a water supply production, treatment, storage, and distribution facility. It's a wastewater collection treatment facility. Roads, streets, bridges, traffic signals, landscaping, anything having to do with state and federal highways, stormwater collections, parks, open space recreation areas, related capital improvements, and public safety facilities, including law enforcement, fire stations, blah, blah.
Does it include the street, lights also?
Well, that would be a safety,
Cool.
yeah, yeah.
Any local components of the state that I have, yeah.
Yeah.
That's my little light bulb there too.
This was kind of I hadn't dug this deep into this until I did this. So I thought it would be interesting to relay all this to you guys. So take this one with a grain of salt. There's 2 pages here. This first part is the general fund total, the current capital improvement plan that Kaplan created for the city. It is very out of touch, is my comment, in terms of some of the things that it claims we should have done by now. There's a few things in there that we have just done as a city, as part of our annual workings, like a computer for community development and, you know, stuff like that. But overall, it was claiming by 2027 that we would be spending $2 million. Well, we're at 2025 and we have 200,000. So the numbers are way off in here. This is why I think we need to work on getting a more accurate capital improvement plan and how to move forward, because, well, Diane saw it this morning on KTVB, they did an article on development impact fees and, or a story. And they talked about how development impact fees are not enough to fund the capital improvements that are necessary for cities. Doesn't fund the staffing, doesn't fund, I mean, you may get a fire station, but you can't afford to hire people to run that fire station. So there is a severe lack in the amount those fees are to help with the future improvements. Second page here is the water and sewer, and that was expected to be 2.2 million for water and sewer. Any questions on capital? It's something we have struggled with as a city, and I can tell you each year budget-wise, the hope is that we would have money to save for big projects. Historically, we have not. Okay, it takes everything we've got to survive as a city. So reserves, carryover, don't spend it all. You need to build up reserves. They're saying we need to keep at least 17% as reserves. When I came in general fund, 2023, our reserves decreased significantly, but then last year we kept spending in control as much as we could, and we actually increased our reserves. So I'm hoping to get more for you on this, on how to carry forward some of the items perhaps that we have budgeted into the next year that we didn't spend. I really want to, that's one of my points this year I want to focus on. I don't want to lose it just because we didn't do something with it. But we also have to have not spent it somewhere else and need it to cover that. So. Okay, on to the expenditures. Where does it go? In any city, personnel is the big cost. 63% of our general fund goes to personnel. General operations, 28%. This is all based on our fiscal year 25 budget, and capital 9%. Capital and generally for general fund is computers and software purchases, long-term leases. We're going to talk about those in a minute. Construction and improvements. Okay, so for example, in fiscal year 25, we put 100,000 in streets for road construction. I don't know what's going to happen with that by the end of the year, whether it will be used elsewhere or whether we will be able to carry forward some money for future. Working on that. So. Capital leases, this came up because recently you guys were evaluating whether to purchase another piece of equipment. So we leased the little lot next to the Bellevue Museum and it costs us $1,600 a year. Fire has a Ford pickup that's $7,500 a year. That will be paid off in February of 2026. They also have their big fire truck that they purchased in 2017. So that one will be done in 2027. That is 21 grand a year. Okay. Marshall has 2 Dodge Durangos. And I'm sorry, Kurt, I never connected with you on when those.
One's paid off.
One's paid off.
The
Okay,
other one will be for is one more year.
Okay, so we're close on those.
Yeah, well, kinda, cause we'll be chatting about that shortly.
We'll be chatting about that.
Coming, let's have it.
Wait, you got a forewarning here. Okay.
We'll be chatting.
So in streets, we have the 5500 truck. That one goes till 2030. We have the Caterpillar loader, goes till 2030, and we have the Bobcat loader that goes till 2027. All of those items are split, a third streets for general funds, a third water, and a third sewer, because they're used in all three departments. So our total capital leases right now are 140,000, and the general fund portion of that is almost 93,000. Okay. Payroll summary, fiscal year 25, and you've probably seen this chart before, this was in one of my other budget books. But general fund payroll is $1.5 million. And that's with taxes, insurance, workers' comp, retirement, all of that. So just kind of a rough breakdown. I am gonna propose a couple changes we'll talk about as we get into general fund payroll budgeting.
I have a question about development impact fees. Will that throw it off, we bounce back? How and or where was the division of the development impact fees? How was that decided? Can that be amended?
It's in that Kaplan plan that we would need to hire someone to do a new revised plan,
So
basically.
if we did the plan, we could also then assess the percentage splits of where the development impact fees are going.
Yes, that would all be part of it,
Okay,
yeah.
And if you do that, if you do something like that, does it renew the dates?
of the monies collected?
Yeah.
Does it, or
No, I don't think it resets what we've already collected.
No, so it does it reset for going forward?
From that point forward, the timeframes would run, but we've got the timeframe running on what we already have.
Okay, yeah.
we contracted with Rich Kaplan to do our original development impact fee study. And with that study, he provided us with a capital improvement plan also. I think that was over the winter of 21. And we adopted it in May of 22.
It was in my slide. This is the one from his
Yeah.
plan.
But anyway, he
And
has,
that's how-
he has all those formulas.
We got the, okay.
Yeah,
And we're
Do you
gonna go over
recall-
that, right?
at some point.
Right, no, not today, but.
Yeah,
Do you recall the cost of that?
I don't, but
We'll look into
I could look into it.
it. Sounds good, I'm just,
And would it be prudent to look at considering using someone else to review it?
I would suggest we do.
Yeah, I know, that's why I was thinking that.
Yeah.
Okay,
for further discussion, thank you.
yes, yeah.
Okay, so you're gonna see document looking something like this when we get into our general budgeting, because what I've done is taken the accounts. So if you have repair and maintenance autos, and then I've got all the departments, and then how much is for each department in that, so then you get a total at the end for that particular accounting line item. That's all this report does. Okay. And then at the bottom of it, page 2, the bottom of it, you have the total for each of the departments, and then it all adds up on the right.
Can I
So,
make a request?
uh-huh,
Could we potentially color block each
yes,
one?
Yeah.
Just to make it so admin will.
I actually have a color block from last year.
Okay, I just find that a little easier to read, it's
Yeah.
color block, okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
So you're gonna see in different forms, depending on where we are in the budget process coming at you. So that's one you will see. So let's talk water and wastewater, our enterprise funds for a minute. Or am I moving too quickly? Any questions? Okay. So enterprise funds they're supposed to be their own self-sustaining business. They are separate from our general fund in any government The revenues are restricted, how they can be used. They are a separate business. We cannot commingle those funds, okay? So water revenue, where do we get our water money? Water user fees. So our monthly fees, charges for new connections, those are our basic two. So for fiscal year 24, it was $459,000. Hookups and connections were another 38,000. So we had just under 500,000 of total user water fees for fiscal year 24. We adopted a rate increase for fiscal year 25, so we upped our budget for fiscal year 25 by 5%. Okay, I don't know that we are in a position, and I would not recommend that we go for another rate increase with that.
That'll be part of the discussion
Yeah.
once we
Yeah.
review our current fees
Okay,
in that category.
exactly,
And that's
yeah,
something I think you've been working on, right, is establishing how.
With, yeah, our department head, yes.
Yes,
Okay.
so that's gonna be fully documented for what, the last 5 years, or?
I will get back to you on what that will look like, but the goal is to have a appropriate calculation of those fees based on our EDUs.
Okay.
Yes.
okay, good.
Which I knew, I mean, that was something very early on.
Which
I think we gotta, you
I
gotta know.
I think we gotta be able to rationalize this,
Yeah, okay.
yes, 100%.
Yeah. So water cap fees, those are for future capital needs, that's what CAP stands for, capital needs. We roughly had 33,000 for fiscal year 24. We have 568,000 of water cap fees built up in a savings account. So.
Question,
Mhm.
do those have any time cap?
No, those aren't
Debt
limited
fees,
like DIF fees,
Okay.
yeah,
Thank you.
no, not to my knowledge, I've never seen anything. Yeah. So other income, we had a couple of ARPA grants last year, I haven't heard anything about ARPA, whether any of that continues. Because that was all kind of COVID related stuff. My best guess would be that they probably aren't continuing with ARPA grants, I have not heard. So water got roughly 80,000 last year, which was a nice help. So water had income of roughly 620,000 for fiscal year 24. And that's what funds running the water system. So where does it go? Now, this is skewed because this is based on a fiscal year 25 budget where we budgeted water pays for 40% of our public works director and one apprentice. So that's the 20% on personnel. Okay, general operations 63% and then capital of 17%, yes.
Where does the contracting labor fit in there?
It's under general ops.
That makes sense for me.
So that's gonna change because we are reducing our contract labor significantly coming this next year, but we'll be increasing personnel labor, I'm sure. I would think. In order to accommodate for that.
And where is all the, when we're looking at this, and will there be a presentation about this as well?
All of this will be in. When we
And not
look
just
at,
your numbers, I mean, you obviously have a lot of numbers, but understanding how we, how each thing is evaluated and how you say, well, it's appropriate to spend this much on personnel, it's appropriate to, this is what this is doing, this is, you know, how we're meeting these goals, right? An actual.
well, the department head first, it starts with the department head going, these are my needs, this is what we need to do, you know, I mean, he's gonna do for his department and Chris is gonna do for his departments. And then where we start, I can tell you, last year, my first time doing budgets, where we started, where we ended up were entirely different. Okay, because the revenue was not there to support where we started. So cuts and things had to be made to make the bottom line end and meet. So it's a little easier with water and wastewater because they do have more usable money And it's only for them, it's not divided out amongst 8 departments like general fund is.
But
Yeah.
I guess I'm wondering,
I wanna refocus your question again, so
Okay.
what I'm hearing you say is, how will the presentation be when we look at water and wastewater?
well, and even actually but you're starting even below, like you're saying, well, the departments are gonna come and say, this is what we want.
Well, it
It's
will,
missing an entire level of, this is the expectation, this is what needs to be delivered, this is the service quality and things. So I'm wondering where that comes into, I mean, how can you possibly come in and say, you don't have a goal, you're like, we're just gonna race up and down like, we don't tell you, or there's not a
So I
set
will
for the
say,
services,
If we
right?
back it up, where a lot of that starts is with our work plans that were developed at the beginning of this year is the department head work plans.
Great,
So that will dictate a bit of what are our needs.
great, so
right?
that is part of,
Yes,
that's all
that
I'm
would
trying to
really-
establish
yeah.
where that comes in.
Shelley sent out basically a budget guideline, like a template, worksheet.
a worksheet for them to work from.
Great,
Those
Develop.
worksheets will be coming to you
great,
with line items.
Mhm.
okay,
will be
that's good,
coming.
we
Yeah.
just, we
But
need to
no,
say,
And then
you know, we want
we're gonna
safety
workshop
issues.
water and wastewater first, but that's not final, so if there's follow-up questions, if there's questions for the department head, that's the whole part of the workshop, and so that's how we'll get to that point.
Yeah,
And then we can always go back with more questions and justifications.
No, and that's so wonderful, but and I guess I just wanted
It's
to
a
establish
process.
it's not all on the money, obviously, it's how's the money spent to achieve these goals. that-
Exactly, and that's where the work
Correct.
plans,
And which,
created.
perfect, thank you.
okay. So, there's a graph of how our, this, I did not include the $3.3 million graph in there, just so you could see it roughly. How things kind of break down there.
Thought it being skewed.
So. Our big capital project with water going and is carrying into this next year is our drinking water improvement plan, so. You guys all know about that project, but that is something we will have to account for in our budgeting. And moving forward, because that is scheduled, am I right, it's supposed to be complete by December of 26?
27.
I think 26.
I think it was 26.
There's a slight
Okay,
yes, 26, we're gonna leave it at that, there's a little
Okay.
bit of a,
There may need
there's
something
a
to
little
change.
part about till March of 27 that we're clarifying.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I will once again put that grant into the budget.
Will you, clarification, will you put what's left of the grant in the budget?
Carry over.
Basically, we started with
Yes.
3.3, we've spent some.
Yes, very
some
much,
portion of it.
Yeah.
But we'll get basically what's left of
Yes.
that, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Mhm.
I know that was probably obvious to all of us.
So let's talk wastewater, okay, same thing, operating revenues are from the fees. Wastewater is roughly double what water is in terms of fees. So, well, fees more than double, but fiscal year 24 was $1.1 million for fees. Cap fees were again 33,000. The wastewater has 223,000 from cap fees in savings for future. And wastewater also received an ARPA grant of just under 50,000 last year, so.
How do you, or where is the opportunity, or how do you decide? We obviously have the remainder of the previous bond. And you get some of these money. How do you do, or how do we determine even these monies that are being put away right now, these cap fees? Why or how is that decided not to, or to retire the loan faster? I was just curious where
That's
that
a
comes
question.
into it.
I have-
Is that during this as well?
Well, and that is a question as I've been looking at that I've had, and part of exploring the budget was what I'd like to see too is in a breakdown of our fees. I think we need to make it very clear what is bond repayment fee versus operational fee, and separating that out and understanding our current what is left in our debt for that bond. And what our, basically what our payoff could be for that, to understand how much debt is.
I have a slide on that here too.
Perfect, yeah.
Yeah, I just think also because we're not, there might have been a period, but we didn't have a brilliant, or we don't have a brilliant bond fee rate. Right, it's not terrible, but it's not brilliant, and so I was just curious if even that had factored in, or we're getting less return. That's
Yeah, we're gonna
slide.
get to it
Okay.
here in a
And
second.
Or where are the discussions?
Thinking about cap fees too, I think not having a department head within the public works department to focus on the use of the cap fees. And then I think there's a lot of opportunity to start looking at utilizing them on future projects once the recommission is finished with the wastewater, and or looking at debt.
Thank you.
So, based on the 25 budget, which wastewater is roughly 50% of the public works and one apprentice, that's 10% personnel. General ops 42% and capital 48%. The reason the capital is higher is because of the debt that we have. So we're gonna talk about that here in just a second. So there's how that kind of charts out. So November 2010, that's when we got that original wastewater treatment plant, revolving promissory note series. $6 million at 3.25. We do have a good rate.
Yeah, it's better. I thought it, for some reason I'd written
But
that.
yeah,
It's a very good rate. It's scheduled to pay off in 2031. The current balance is 2.4 million. We pay $400,000 a year in 2 payments. I just made a $200,000 payment. If you looked at your claims, it was on the last claims report. Anyone catch it?
Yeah.
I was gonna ask, but I was like, yeah.
Well, I missed that meeting. I was like, oh darn. Anyway, so it's 2.4 million to pay that off.
so
But I have to say though, prior to me, there was some money set into and transferred into a separate LGIP account. For this, it's roughly like $400,000. I have left that sit there because wastewater has had the money to make those payments without disturbing. I've been keeping that as a reserve in case something happens for paying that debt. So. they
You're
did-
probably getting more for that money.
yes.
Yeah, we're earning good interest.
Interest rate return is
It's
higher.
probably a couple grand a month.
Yeah, I mean,
It's higher than our debt
Yeah.
percentage,
Yeah.
We
yeah,
can
our
put it
return.
in American Express checking and get better.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, so anyway, we're in good shape on that one. That's been, somebody online?
I'm
Okay,
under spend time.
so what is next? We're at the end here. Your work sessions. So next week, you will get a bunch of worksheets from me. I cannot promise you that you will get them in advance of your meeting. And I actually, I think it's better if we all look at them together. I don't know, I'm gonna defer to Christina on this, but it's gonna take everything I've got time-wise just to get water and wastewater ready for you next week to look at. And we will then be looking at those budgets in total. I have not received anything from Chris yet, so if that tells you how much time I'll have. We're off Monday for the holiday, so Tuesday is that meeting when that's
No
supposed to happen.
holidays from here on out.
Yeah, and I think, and obviously we'll defer, but I think considering the tight constraints and that we'll have that. And it's a process, right? We have multiple weeks and, you know, I would like to see the data and I'd like to see it as an export, but I can work with the things after you've taught me more about it, right?
Okay, so any questions?
Yes, I have a question. Did I miss something on Borough in here in this?
I didn't put Borough in here at all.
Okay,
Yeah, I did not, because it's its own.
right, but I thought before the meeting started, when I had asked a question about it, that it was gonna be covered, so. Maybe I'm,
Or
You were asking about
council,
impact.
huh?
You were asking about impact. Fees. You were asking about impact fees before the meeting?
I think I asked about Borough as well.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know you were
That's
talking
okay.
about Borough. I
That's
was
okay.
talking about impact fees.
No worries, I know it's a separate.
Yeah.
completely separate from any of this. I understand that, yes.
And, yeah, borough does get tax revenue that if that wasn't there, would come directly to the city, but it goes to borough. So. Any other questions? Sean, Jessica?
No,
About
I
half
thought-
of it.
It's okay, we'll make sure
Yeah.
Jessica has the documentation, Jessica.
Hey guys, sorry I was late in joining the meeting. Question for the water, wastewater, the budget next week, is that going to be tacked on to the Tuesday meeting? Because I know there were dates
Yes.
floated out, but I didn't see any confirmation on dates next week of when that
So
is.
originally we had talked about the 28th, but there's that event that we all wanted to attend, or
Yep.
those had expressed they wanted to attend. And so it will be tacked on to the 27th meeting.
Okay.
And just for all council, we will keep the focus of that meeting to two big topics for the sake of time, for everyone's time. So yes, that is, and then nothing else in the schedule has changed. And that updated schedule is in this packet, and we have determined collectively that we'll make sure we send out calendar invites for all of the remaining dates that are not on a council evening night. So we'll make sure that happens to make it on everybody's calendars.
Great. And then just to follow up on Clear Creek, I feel like we're moving fast through that franchise. Do you know if they've received all of the addresses? And then my other thing is that, you know, if our addresses, like all of the addresses that they needed when I was thinking about Idaho Power or whatnot, have they received an update or master list of all of our addresses to make sure that we're just not missing? Because our population has increased, it hasn't decreased in Bellevue. So I'm just kind of curious about that.
I think it sounds like we have some follow-up questions for Idaho Power, so if we could tack that onto the question list is the population somehow affecting our franchise fees, or if we've had an increase in addresses, master address list?
Well, when they get service at an address, Idaho Power has to know about it.
Yeah.
So it would be included in what they're paying us franchise fees for. I mean, they can't do it without Idaho Power knowing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And Jessica, I was informed that all information has been delivered to Clear Creek.
Oh, great.
Um,
Okay.
And so it'll just be a follow-up with that contact to see where we're at on that end. And the plan with that, council, is to get the information about what that would look like for franchise fees, what that would cost to the citizens, what the options would be. And to make a determination if it's appropriate for the franchise to go through then Clear Creek with fees coming to the city, or keep it as it is with how trash service functions. So that's the plan there.
Any other questions?
I'm curious, just I heard you also reference just kind of these flat numbers about how equipment may be shared between departments. And it was brought up for this most recent piece of equipment. And are you gonna be providing that type of ROI about how those numbers were derived, 40%, 40, 30, 33, or you're sharing equipment that may or may not be equally used, especially by enterprise fund departments, like the water and.
Not really. I mean, my focus in the budgeting is to get to the numbers. And I do a lot of spreadsheeting of things like dues and subscriptions and things like that. I don't do return on investment
No, I wouldn't.
calculations and.
I will say
There will be
to your credit though, Shelley, you utilize a lot of the payroll allocation numbers to determine your percentages.
Yes.
You have in the past, so that's a lot of where the data is derived to determine percentage splits.
Yes.
Which, but so some of those questions then are not gonna come to you necessarily, they're gonna come to department heads, or there are things that we end up, that's where we're sitting there saying, where is this gonna go and how do you justify? I think especially when you're looking at enterprise, these discrete businesses, right? You can't just have them shoulder some of the load for the city. If the sewer only is gonna use that thing one day a year, you can't charge it 33% of right, so that, I was just wondering where that, or where we, and that's.
Part of the discussion, I
Yeah,
would say,
just
those are
more.
great discussion questions, and again, if the department heads or Shelley doesn't have the answer in that moment, it's great for them to take and come back to at our next workshop.
Okay, so that,
Yep.
great, thank you, that's what I meant, it's like where we ask, how we ask, okay, thank you.
So that's all I have.
Well, it was fabulous.
My only request is leave your book. You may take that presentation if you'd like to take it with you. Or I will keep it in your book. I'm only gonna keep adding to your book each week. So you don't get a buy.
We want binders.
Sorry. When I go to Walmart, I'll buy more binders.
I want a pink one.
You want a pink one?
I have pink.
I almost got pink.
You could have gotten a bunch, we have them over at the building material thrift, and you could use recycled binders.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm just saying.
But the Marshall's up and you could give them the
So,
burgers.
and this is one thing I just wanna make a comment about while we're here together on council. We have a great schedule going. With what feels like a sufficient amount of dates for these discussions. But if we need more work sessions, we will add more work sessions and or tack it on to city council meetings. So this isn't all we have to work with, but it'd be nice to keep it within this schedule. But I think there's, of course, a lot of value in, you know, more discussion if needed, and we will add if needed. So please don't be afraid to ask for more. Don't be afraid to ask if you need more time to discuss. I think this budget in particular is a very important one. Shelley's got her legs under her. I think it'll be a really productive budget year, so yeah, just want to make that comment.
And just so you know, we did it in 3, I think, last year. And they were at council meetings.
Yeah.
Just so you know.
I recall a year not that long ago where we had 4 budget meetings in 1 week.
Yeah, and that, I mean,
You were on the council then.
that's not fun for anyone.
Oh, I loved every minute of it. I love language.
So fun.
Well, thank you, Shelley, for
Thank
pushing
you.
us to this.
It's a great kick.
Thank you for all the council members who attended, even a little tardy, it's okay, I know things happen, so thank you all for being here. And Shelley, will you email out a copy, just to Jessica, of this presentation when you get a chance? Yeah, thank you so much, Jessica, in case you wanna review it.
Yes, please. Thank
No,
you so much.
And there is a hard copy here, just so you know.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, okay, at this time, I take a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Adjourn the meeting. Adjourn the meeting.
Adjourn the meeting.
Second them.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you.
Anything that I.
So Sean's
You guys don't like to-
T-shirt with